Welcome to Channel Squared, where we connect with you, the divine, and channel here with you live. I'm Heather Marie, founder of Soulgate.
And I'm Jody Lynn Craven, founder of Abundance Consciousness. And today we've got Ascension, the journey, the joy, and the pain, part 2. We've got so many questions that we didn't cover last week. Don't worry if you missed last week's episode. You can catch up on it after. Just stay with us here live. We were talking all things Ascension and our own journey. And of course, we're in the channel. So if you've got questions, we've got answers. Just ask. Drop them in the chat. Okay. We have a lot of questions to cover, Heather. Are you ready for this?
I sure hope so. I can't see the chat, so I can see the video, but I can't see the chat. I don't know why this is giving me so much trouble. If anybody knows, please tell me.
Technology. It's technology for you, Heather. I
Mhm.
got the chat up here, so we are good.
Okay, excellent.
Okay.
All right.
All
Where
right.
are we starting?
Last week, we were talking a little bit about our own personal ascension stories and how we broke through and some different things. Do you want a tough one or you want an easy one?
I don't care. Just give me one.
Okay. Have you ever tried to hide your gifts? Go.
Yes. Um, okay, so yes, but not in like the way that you would think. I think when I first started realizing what was happening to me or like what I was doing like with the channeling, it was like a little later in life, you know. I mean, it didn't really dawn on me what was happening until somebody would, say, "Hey, Heather, remember when you told me this thing, and oh my gosh, it totally changed my life." And so it was kind of like in those times that I started realizing that something was going on. Um, but when I finally came out of the spiritual closet, as a channel, didn't want anybody to know. And I think it was I think it was about being afraid of like being an imposter. You know what I mean? Like I had imposter syndrome like quite badly, and I was worried that I'd be called a fake, or people wouldn't like me, or I don't know, just all of those childish thoughts that go through your mind. So it was really interesting because I had taken a class from one of my first spiritual teachers, and at the class, I had told her that I was going to announce my gift and start giving it to the world. And that was like terrifying. I mean, I was in this class with her for, I don't know, like 3 or 4 days. And the whole time it's like beating me in the back of my head to say something. And so finally, after the class was over, she pulled me aside and she said, I know you have something you need to talk to me about. So what is it? Of course she does. She's psychic, right? Of course she knows. And so I told her, I said, well, and I kind of tiptoed and danced around it. And then she's like, just spit it out. And I spit it out. She's like, finally, I'm so glad that you finally figured that out. And I was like, oh, she's like, of course, I think that's wonderful. And I'm happy to help you, get in front of Hay House and, some of these other big publishers. And so I think that having her support, I think felt really good, but I still was like, oh my gosh, do I want the world to know? Like, because I've had many lifetimes of persecution for being a channel and for being a healer and for doing, the woo things in the witch times, right? And so there's a lot of like Akashic record work that I needed to do and like reprogramming work that I needed to do so that I could get beyond that component that was just kind of still felt like it was hanging over my head. And how people were gonna like relate to me. That might change. And I do feel like in with regard to some relationships in my life, people don't know how to relate to me anymore. Like they don't know how to talk with me. They just it's just like it has become this like weird ginormous elephant in the room. It's like they want to ask about it, but they don't really want to ask about it because they only see me as Heather before, and then now there's Heather now. And somehow I'm a different person, but I'm not any different. I just am no longer in the spiritual closet.
He's being
So,
honest.
yes, yeah, exactly. So, yeah, I totally tried to hide my gift and I did it successfully for, close to 40 years. So, but not anymore. This is who I am.
This is
What
who
about
I
you?
am. Yeah. Yes. Yes.
Mhm.
100%. First, I didn't believe it. And then I was like, "Ooh, I can't tell people this. This is just weird. People are gonna think I'm weird." I didn't know how to talk about it with friends that I had kind of similar experience to you. It was kind of like this elephant in the room. And for me, when I really went down the spiritual path, like when I really started to wake up, a lot of my belief systems began to crumble. I was in the financial industry. I have a financial brokerage. The way that I built my business, all of those belief systems that I had, adopted and made my life around or because of, had fallen apart. Like it felt like the floor had fallen out. So I couldn't exactly conceptualize or explain everything that was happening, everything that was coming to me. Like when I first started getting downloads, it would be, just these profound things would come to me. And so I wouldn't talk about them with people unless I felt really comfortable that, they weren't gonna judge me. And then I built a big wall around myself because I was afraid of judgment and, being um, pushed away by other people and, like betrayed by friends. So I definitely tried to hide and sugarcoat some of the things that I was experiencing or the things that I was now realizing. And also another thing that comes to my mind is for a long time I always felt like I didn't want to be egotistical, like I'm great, look at me, I'm so
Mhm.
special, I've never really wanted to be that person. So it was hard for me to like be like, hey, look at me, I'm awesome. So when I started to really hone into these gifts, I felt very awkward about saying, like, oh, when you speak to me, I can see where your abundance blocks are. They just kind of show up for me. That's not, it felt like I was being boastful in a way. So I hid in that regard also. So yes, I did hide.
Mhm.
And I think
Yeah,
that's a very normal thing.
100%. I mean, we did a whole episode about stepping out of the spiritual closet. So you
Yeah.
guys check that out. I think we did that a couple years ago, in fact. But
Yeah.
um, I think that that's completely normal to have that like weirdness of like wanting to hide out, and like your life before and your life after stepping out of the spiritual closet. I think the wonderful thing about the future trajectory of, humanity is that this is going to become a very normal conversation. And I'm really excited for that day because I think that there's a lot of young people that are experiencing their spiritual gifts and they maybe feel like they can't talk about it because it makes them weird or different or like people aren't going to understand at all. So I'm looking forward to this, ascension and this awakening so that we can get on with everybody just being who they actually are instead of who they have been programmed societally to be. Yeah.
Absolutely. Ooh, another question dropped in. So we're going to add that to the list. And if we get to it, that would be amazing. But I'm going to move on to the next question we have here. What was the scariest part of your ascension?
Um, hmm.
Knowing
Okay,
that,
well,
Ascension isn't like it started on, February 14th, 2024,
right,
whatever, right?
right.
Like
Yeah.
so far, what is the scariest part or
Okay.
perceivably scariest?
God, there's so many scary parts about it. I'm like, God, I picking one. I don't think I can pick one. I'm just gonna have to tell you about them all because they're all equally scary. So I'll try and be quick about it. So the first time I had like scary experiences, I would say I was like, I don't know, maybe 8 or 9 years old. So the amnesia had set in and I was like still connected, but I had the amnesia about who I was and why I was here, right? And so like beings would come to me to like communicate with me, and I could feel them like looking at me and like being in my presence. And it got like so bad at one point that like I was terrified to be alone in the bathroom because I felt like that's where they always came to talk to me. And it's funny, to this day, I get some of my biggest downloads in the shower. I actually have a little notepad in my shower with a pencil that like writes when it's wet so that when I get my downloads, I can write them down and I don't have to worry about like forgetting them. But I would be like, a little girl like peeing on the toilet with the door wide open, looking out, totally terrified that something was like looking at me, right? Because I could feel them there, right? So that
Oh,
was kind of like when I'd say like the terror started was at that age. But, there have been other times where like when I first I feel like I don't know if I was first attuned to Reiki or I just signed up to take my first Reiki training. And this was one of my very first spiritual teachers. And I was laying there one night in bed, like I woke up in the middle of the night. And like, oh man, it makes my heart like pound just thinking about it. I was totally asleep and I woke up and I felt like something was trying to get inside of my body. Like it was
really?
like pressing me down and like trying to get inside my body. And so I woke up and I was like completely terrified. Totally freaked me out. So much so that I actually texted my teacher. It was like the middle of the night. It's like 2 o'clock in the morning. And I was, oh my God, something's just I was completely freaked out. Completely freaked out. And her immediate response was, it's okay. I'm up. I felt that. Like, I was like, what? And she said, did you see this person today? And she named one of my clients. And I said, yeah, I did. And she says, that was his daughter. She can't get into your body, just relax. But she knows who you are, and she is coming to get you to give him a message. And I was like, well, tell I was like totally terrified. And in that moment, I was ready to throw in the towel. I was like, I don't want to do it anymore. I don't want to do it anymore. This is crazy. So it was really, that was another like really scary, scary moment. And then I would say, like, to round out the top three scary moments, I would say some of like the past life regression work
Mm.
was pretty traumatic because doing like soul peace recovery and doing that past life regression work, you actually see and experience and like witness it as if it's happening to you again. sometimes you get the gift of like seeing it from like your high self perspective, and it's like just a movie playing out in front of you. But not me, not me. I like to go in and like do it all again. And so
Oh,
that was really like scary. I think the whole idea of like being able to reach over to the other side and just like grasp that and bring it back with me, that was also like very terrifying. Um, and then after a while, it just got funny because I was like, oh, there I am being tortured again. Ha ha, you know? What about you? Like, what was scary for you?
oh man. I don't really have a lot of those those kind of experiences on my ascension journey. I mean, like there was a few like, ugh, like feeling things or, it kind of freaked me out being able to sense something was going on, get information, and then it be confirmed. That used to freak me out. Like, okay, that just a new skill, it just weird that kind of felt awkward that you knew something about somebody and they didn't tell you with their mouth. So that was sort of awkward for me
Yeah.
at the beginning. I think though there's two things that have come up. um Two things. So one of the big ones for me is as I was unbridling myself and unlearning all of these things that I thought were absolute truths, that scared the shit out of me. Seeing how nothing is really real, and that we things are more malleable, like that the fundamental truths I thought about my life and the world and how it operates, how you get things done, were complete lies. That was one of the scariest things for me, and something that I still not grapple with so much anymore, but really grappled with at the beginning. Like I've always been taught that, you know, sky is blue, and now I'm like, huh. Just as an example, I don't actually know, that wasn't one of them, but I couldn't think of one that I
Mhm.
thought, so
Yeah.
all of these things that I thought were just, this is the way that the world works, and then having like the carpet pulled out from underneath me and being like, that's not how it works. What do you mean that's not how it works? So how do I function and move forward? That was really scary for me. When it comes to channeling things, some of the stuff that we've channeled is scary. But the only time, and we're going to talk about that, but the only time where I was completely, like, absolutely, well, there was two times, but we'll get to the other time. But one of the big times where I was like, holy f balls, was when I was hijacked, when my channel was actually hijacked. And
Right.
I hadn't noticed, I didn't know the way that I was connected with these guys was through somebody else that I liked and I trusted. So I didn't really do a verification process with them, and I just went with it, blind faith. And then things slowly began to change. It was heavier to channel those beings, and it was scarier information. And then it clicked, and the scary part, which I'm leading up to, was basically them saying like, you should start a war. And
Right.
I was like, oh, something is wrong. Like I could see war, and they were pushing me towards that. And that felt really gross. So that was scary. But that leads us to our next question. Have you ever been hijacked?
Um, have I ever been hijacked? I wouldn't say that I have been hijacked because I am crazy when it comes to verifying who I'm talking to. Um, but that said, I mean, when you had your channel hijacked, you and I were working together on a special project. And even I didn't verify or validate those guides. And I think I just, because of where they came from, like how you got them and the person that introduced you to them, completely trusted. Why would there be anything wackadoo with that? Right. And
Yeah.
so, I learned a very valuable lesson in that experience that verify everybody, no matter where they come from. So I think that while I can't remember a time that I've been hijacked, if I was, I wasn't aware that I was. But I think part of that's because I am like a crazy person when it comes to making sure that I'm talking to who I think I'm talking to. Like I've got tests and measurements and, all kinds of validation tools that I use to confirm my connection and and whatnot. But I think that that's one of the things that I like to teach my students when they're learning to channel or they've been channeling for a while and they haven't been um like verifying their beings is
Mhm.
how to actually do that because for whatever reason they don't teach that and I just think it's such an important skill set to have um but I can think of times when my channel was not easy. And that tends to lend itself to hijacking or some type of energy like dysfunction that's happening in the channel. And sometimes that's not even anything to do with the being. Sometimes it could be your own energy. You're not energetically cleansing yourself. You're not doing your spiritual housekeeping. You're not getting enough sleep. You don't have enough salt in your body. Like it could be a lot of, you're dehydrated. Like there's a lot of things that can affect the clarity of a channel. Um, what's so weird is like sometimes, and I don't know, maybe this is a question that you have on there about like caffeine and alcohol. I've
Mhm.
noticed that a lot of spiritual like teachers, leaders, channels specifically, that they tend to avoid alcohol and caffeine. And I actually had another channel ask me that, like, do I need to not have any caffeine, before our session? Should I just refrain from that? And I'm like, well, if you need an espresso, girl, have an espresso. Like the caffeine's not going to affect anything for me, like it's really interesting how like even like some of those like substances affect people's clarity.
Yeah.
I don't channel when I've been drinking because come on, let's be real, right? I'll be like, oh yeah, I think I validated those people, But
Yeah. You're not as
but
sharp when you're drunk.
well, yeah, and you're not as like diligent in your processes either. You kind of get that loosey goosey, right? But caffeine and stuff, I don't really understand the association with that. So if anybody knows the caffeine thing, drop it in the chat because that's something I'd like to know. Like why don't they drink caffeine? I have a cup of coffee every morning or a tea, both caffeinated,
Mhm.
and I would probably die without them.
Yeah.
Just
Well,
kidding.
I
I'm not
think
that I'm not that addicted.
I think one, if people say certain things like, oh, you have to, for your ascension process, you got to eat really clean and you can't eat meat anymore and you can't drink coffee, you can't drink alcohol. Like there's all of these rules around it, spiritual traps, if you will. Um, Yeah, that's foreshadowing for future sessions or future episodes. But I think it's all dependent on you. Like if caffeine hijacks you on a regular basis,
Mhm.
then you should probably drink less of it in your everyday life, not just because you're a channel, but because your body is trying to tell you something. If you don't know, if it hijacks you, well, just pay attention the next time you have a cup. How do you feel? I know for me, I can drink about 3. And maybe that's not the best, But anywhere after that third one, I start like feeling gross and shaky and whatever. Same, even with water. I drink a lot of water in my day. But some people would feel gross drinking as much water as I do. That's what I like to do. Alcohol. I stopped drinking alcohol, I don't know, like 5 years ago, almost 6 years ago, almost completely, just because I didn't want it anymore. Like there was just no, just didn't feel like it anymore. I will have the odd drink. And sometimes I feel more like I want to have that, Budweiser in a bottle, must be a bottle for me. That's just something that I want to have. But I think it's really being in tune with what's going on with your body and how you feel when you eat those things generally. And if they jack up your system, obviously they're going to interfere with your intuition, your channel, whatever, all of those things, I think.
Yeah. So we got some commenting here in the chat, so I just want to touch this here for a second.
Mhm.
Kat says, what about alien abduction? I know some have great interactions and that is how they channel, but how do you know if it is safe? That's a great question. Um, every single being, species, whatever, has a vibrational signature. And your guides, every guide even has a vibrational signature. And the vibrational signature is as unique as your fingerprint. So no two beings in any species anywhere at all have the same vibrational signature. It's an impossibility. And this was one of the wonderful things that Creator gave all of its light sparks in order to have individuality, right? So because of this, you learn what those vibrational signatures actually are. So when you are being introduced to guides or you are having those experiences, ask them to send you their vibrational signature. And you can feel the underlying tone of like who they are, how they are, which side of duality do they work on, right? Like if they send you their vibrational signature and it feels like someone just like shot you with a shotgun, and you're bleeding on the floor, that's probably working on one side of duality. Where if they send you their vibrational signature and it feels like, you're kind of getting like light, you kind of can't catch your breath. It just feels kind of like, whoa, that's a lot. They're probably on the other side of duality. So without going into like a major lesson on how to do it. And I always recommend that you do this with somebody who does this type of thing so that they can help guide you and like teach you and show you and validate for you what is, what you're experiencing. Um, but vibrations don't lie. It's like the biggest truth in spirituality. Vibration doesn't lie. So anytime you ask for vibrational signature, one, they have to send it to you. It's like a universal law. And two, they can't finagle it in any way because it's as unique as their fingerprint. Kat also says, I've heard all the bodily nourishment banning when you awaken, and I just think it's really how it affects your energy and how you feel. Yeah, that's exactly what Jody was saying. And Marilyn says, I've read about not eating pork, but I'm in love with bacon, so not gonna happen. Oh yeah, me too, girl. I might
Oh,
eat
I
all the
love bacon.
things.
I
Yeah, bacon's a
love
staple at your house.
bacon. Yeah. Bacon. I
Yeah.
want to get a pig just so I
Oh
can
my
have
gosh.
more bacon. Yes. I think everything, I agree with everything that you have said. Um,
Yeah.
shall we go with the next question?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So it's kind of goes with the, what was the scariest part? Um, but okay. We've channeled some very I don't want to call them heavy, scary, interesting, crazy things, not only in our 2024 predictions episode, but a lot of things like the 2024 predictions episode, by the way, was the first time that Heather and I were like 100% unfiltered.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the thing is sometimes, look, I'm just going to tell them. We
Just tell
get
them.
some crazy shit, y'all. Okay. Like, there is a lot of information that comes in when we're channeling that we don't share. And we don't share it because it's not going to bring any good, right? And we are here, wanting to like inspire and uplift and empower our community to, have wonderful, beautiful lives. Now, that doesn't mean that the terrible shit that we're channeling isn't going to happen. We just need time to frame it in a way that gives you that empowered feeling to handle it when it does arrive. Our 2024 predictions episode, we just went raw and unfiltered and just said it as it came out. And it's interesting because it got quite a bit of traction and quite a bit of um commentary. So
Yeah,
I
which we love.
which
Keep
we love.
up in the chat and
Yeah.
pressing
Yeah.
that like button.
So the thing is that while we like get these like full disclosure types of information, sometimes we can't share it because it's not, we receive it and then we're like, we can't say that because it's going to create mayhem or war or, something, right? And so we need to find a way to like frame it and deliver it.
Yeah, or we don't
Um,
have the time to like or the platform in this moment to like hold you while you fall apart hearing the information. And the point of this show
right.
is not to for you to fall apart. We want to lift you up. So like Heather said, we need to find a different way of saying it or channel some more tools on, okay, this is what we're getting, and this, and this, so that there's some sort of movement in that empowered direction forward for yourself. So,
Yeah, I mean, if you go back historically and look at our transmissions, you'll see that there's times when we are doing like a block around tools, like spiritual tools. And we're teaching you those tools because we've seen something coming down the pipe that's going to affect you that you're going to need those tools. Or we will talk about stuff that happens to us in our life and like how we have been experiencing things. And we're doing that because we're planting seeds of how to work through what we see coming down the pipe. And it's not that we don't want to share with you the like raw channeled content that we're getting. It's that we want you um to be in a wonderful place when whatever we see does happen. So that's kind of how we do that. I've already forgotten the question. We've gone off
okay.
on a tangent.
Has there been anything? We know the answer is yes, but has there been anything, and do you want to share that you channeled that freaked you out? And how do you deal with knowing some of this information?
Oh. Okay, so I'm like debating in my own mind whether or not to
Just give
share.
it. Just give
Okay.
it. Just give
Okay.
it.
So let's go back to 2020 when we were all locked up in our houses during the pandemic. And I was getting ready to relaunch Soulgate. And um, as I was channeling some stuff for the relaunch of Soulgate, the pandemic was already happening, right? So I was already in that, we were already all locked up, whatever. In that, I channeled that there was going to be um like a medicine that was going to essentially eliminate humanity. Okay. So, without saying anything about bananas, so we don't get deplatformed right now. This was something that, I had channeled. I don't recall whether or not I publicly put it out, if I did or not, but I know that like those in my close circle heard all about it. And I was like, do not eat the bananas because if you do, it's going to actually alter your human composition. And it's very, very dangerous. So this was information that I got, and it was terrifying to me because I could see exactly what was going to happen, and I could see the nefarious nature around how that was actually built, because when I channeled about uh COVID-19, the virus that was coming in, right? When I channeled about this, it was brought in that this virus was something that the souls who departed under it had agreed to. And they agreed to depart in this way in order to be recycled into New Earth. So even though it was maybe a painful death for them or something like that, it was a jumping off point to a better soul experience. So they were like, yeah, I will go in that way so that I can be recycled in to New Earth paradigm without duality, right? Like amazing. So I know that a lot of you that are watching have lost loved ones through the pandemic, and I can't imagine the pain that you went through doing that. The silver lining to that is that they are now free to move into a really beautiful, wonderful experience. But those bananas were not part of the plan. The bananas weren't part of the plan at all. So those who created the bananas and then pushed the bananas were pushing them in this vein of duality or evil or control. Okay, it was a control mechanism. And I could see this and I was channeling this. And so, like my friends and my family, I mean, I was like on my soapbox. Don't eat the bananas. Don't eat the bananas. Just whatever you do, if you don't do anything for me ever in your life, please don't eat the bananas because the bananas are dangerous and they're going to kill a lot of people. So, that I would say was probably the most terrifying information that I had channeled and that I can, think of recently. And it was
Except for the
terrible
2024
watching.
predictions.
Right, right. Yeah, there's always that. But the worst part about it was like there was a lot of guilt when I started seeing everything that I had channeled play out in front of me. And as I'm watching, young athletes die on the field, and I'm seeing all of these side effects that are, harming people, and you're learning now that their human physiology is completely altered, and you're seeing the birth rates going down. All of this stuff that I had channeled about these deadly bananas was coming to fruition. And that I think was probably one of the most painful experiences because I should have said something. And I carried that guilt for a long time. Well, I mean, it can't be too long. It's only been a couple of years since the bananas were released, but the last couple of years, it's been really hard, like just looking at it and going, man, I really should have said more. I should have, but I was afraid of that persecution that I was going to get because I'd been persecuted in previous lifetimes before for standing on my soapbox and being like, don't eat the bananas, don't eat them, And so what did they do? They locked me up, they caged me, they tortured me, and then I died, right? And that's just how my lives went. But this time I there was a lot of guilt around like not just shouting it from the rooftops.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. Um
We're being metaphorical, Anna, about the bananas. It was something else that happened during COVID. The method of
Ooh.
yeah, there we go.
There we go.
But you know what? I like to speak to exactly what we're saying to Anna right now. The reason why we can't say some things out loud is because we will be silenced. Our channel will be shuttered. And we've had that happen with
Mhm.
several episodes that crossed a line in someone else's mind that wasn't appropriate or whatever, and we were shadow banned. And even though you feel guilt not saying anything, Heather, um from this perspective, or to give you another perspective, I bet you very few people would have seen it anyway because it would have been shadow banned.
You're
So
right. You're absolutely right about that because we were experiencing quite a bit of that during that time frame.
yeah,
So, yeah.
absolutely. So just to reiterate, regular bananas, absolutely safe and wonderful for you. Heather was talking about the pew pews. Um, yeah. So
Yeah.
I think for me, I relate to a lot of what you were saying. Some things are scary to say. The scariest thing for me to channel, well, a couple of things. The first time that I channeled that the trajectory that we're going with Earth is that there will be no money. That was really difficult for me to understand, especially being a financial advisor and having a brokerage. That was like, huh, I don't understand. It's difficult to conceptualize how the world will operate. And that took me several years to like even be able to say out loud. But then actually channeling the fall of the currency that is upon us, and all of that has been quite extraordinary for me to sit with as I guide people in different capacities with money. That has been a weird dichotomy. And even with the another thing, we'll get back to the money thing, but when we had the protests in Canada, 2021, I believe it was, the large trucker protest. Um, I didn't say it in any sort of public platform, but again, like you had said, Heather, with friends and people that were close to me, they were asking me, what's going to happen next. And with like incredibly insane accuracy, I was able to, channel like line item by line item what was going to happen, when it was going to happen, the next thing that was going to
Mhm.
happen. And in Ottawa. And it was crazy having that conversation. And then over the next several weeks, watching everything play out. Because obviously, when I channeled, yeah, people's bank accounts are going to get seized. They're going to come in like vans and take people away and drive them to the middle of nowhere. I was like, this is Canada. Like, we're happy and peaceful people. Like, that is not happening. Like, that is against our rights. Like, la, la, la. Like, there was just, I was like, this is crazy. There's no way that is accurate information. And that's why I refused to tell anybody that wasn't a part of that channeling session, which is really our friend Jackie and Heather, and my
Right.
husband and a few other close people. But
Right.
then to watch it happen like verbatim, exactly what I channeled was pretty unsettling, that all of that happened. And again, I felt the same kind of guilt that you were feeling, like I should have said something. I actually did have a couple of friends who were down there, and after that channeling session, I didn't tell them any specifics, but I said you need to be safe, and kind of gave them a warning of what they needed to watch out for. And so hopefully they're fine, they're home, everything's fine now. But that was difficult for me to channel. And so the second part of that question is, how do you deal with some of that stuff? So I'd love to hear from you, Heather. I know you felt some guilt, some fear about some stuff that's coming down the pipe, but how do you reconcile with what you know?
Okay, so my human perspective grapples quite a bit with the information because, I want people to be happy and I want the world to be a peaceful, lovely place. And, um, I think about my aging parents and my family and what does this mean? Like, I'm trying to have children. What kind of world are we leaving them? And so the human in me really struggles a lot with the information. And I sometimes I'll get depressed. Sometimes I will cry. Sometimes I get really pissed off. It just, the human in me still has all of those emotions. And I think sometimes when we're consuming this type of content, we forget that there's still a human involved in the messages that are being sent over. So, we've got our haters, right? And haters are going to hate. So they just enjoy your miserable life, But the soul within all of this physicality also knows that this is part of the plan, that Earth experiment is coming to a close and that at some point it's going to end. And when that point happens, I'm going to witness it. And so it will happen in my lifetime, and I know this. So when I'm really like in it, like in the human emotions of it all, I have to come back to like the soul piece of me and say, we knew this was going to happen before we came here. The only reason why there's emotions involved, Heather, is because you have a human physicality. If I were a plant, I wouldn't have these feelings. I wouldn't have this experience of this. It would just be what is. And so there's a lot of like talking myself off the ledge, my little human, my little girl that's going, oh my gosh, what's happening? There's a lot of that that goes on because I am still human and I care very deeply for the people that are in my life. Like probably too much, you know? But, at some point I have to stop and say, okay, Heather, look, like you knew this was going to happen before you came, and so did all of them. And
Mhm.
they may not remember it now, but when they get to the other side, they'll go, whoa, what a crazy ride. Can you believe that? That is even crazier than what I thought it was going to be when I came in. And so
Ah,
I guess that's kind of like how I don't like jump off that roof. You know what I mean? That's the only thing I can think of on how I deal with it. I mean, like, how do you deal with it? Like I'm imagining you have the same sort of situations.
yeah. Yeah. I mean, we channel a lot of things together.
Mhm.
And I think it's interesting the difference in the way where some things will like scare the crap out of me and you're like, yeah, it's cool. And some things will scare the crap out of you and I'll be like, yeah, it's all right, whatever. And I think that's the yin and the yang in our relationship, which is so beautiful. But mine is very similar. Like I spend a lot of time getting curious about how I am feeling and why I'm feeling that way. Because a lot of times when we're feeling like anxiety or anguish or fear or, judgment or these things, we're either stuck in the past or in the future, worrying about the future. And neither thing is happening in this present moment, just we are. It's just us here and we're fine. We're safe. So reminding myself of that, like right where I am right now, where I sit, I am flourishing. I am abundant. I am provided for. All of those things are true right now in this moment. So that constant reminder so that I can get out of that, fight, flight, freeze mechanism. And then my whole system can begin to calm down and then I can make some, informed decisions from there. Like some of the things that we were channeling in the 2024 predictions. Okay, if the food system goes down or some things like that, am I prepared at all? Am I even close to being prepared? Is there a way that I can feel better? Maybe it's just simply writing down people's phone numbers or addresses, because that's not something that I've ever memorized. Like, what can I do to feel better in this situation? And then, kind of the last thing that I always go back to is exactly what you said. I signed up to be here. I signed up for this experience, and I knew that all of this was going to happen. It wasn't like it came out of, left field. I came because I wanted to experience this. There was that excitement from the other side coming here. We won the lottery to be here. So I'm going to act like it's the lottery, like I won the lottery, regardless of what's going to happen next. I know that it's always for the better. And when I look back in my life, no matter how hard things got, it was always for the better. I am better. My life is 1,000 times better because of all of those things that I've been through. So I remind myself of that and remind myself that this will be no different. It will all be for the better.
Good point. Totally
Yeah.
good point. Okay, I'm gonna hop over here to the chat here and see what we've got going on. How do you feel? So Kat's asking, how do you feel safe with being fully open to your soul journey in a way that allows things to fully come to you so you can have your full experience here? I mean, I think that what Jody just touched on is the way to do it, to know that when you came here under complete disclosure. You knew what this was going to be like for you, and you wouldn't have chosen badly. I know Jody says that a lot, that's kind of like you should like seriously like trademark that phrase because I think it's such a great one.
Yeah,
I
well,
knew what
trademark.
I was coming here for, and I wouldn't have chosen poorly. So I think having that reference point when you're, every day, remind yourself, I chose perfectly for myself. I chose perfectly for myself. No matter what I have thrown at me today, it's absolutely perfection because I would have only chose perfection. So, um, yeah, hopefully that answers that question. So what
Yeah. And
else
if
do we
you
have,
missed,
Jody?
Kat, if you missed the very beginning of this episode, we talked about how we hid our spiritual gifts and a little bit about how we were coming into our own and some of the things that we did. So if you missed the very beginning of this episode, make sure that once we're over here that you rewind and watch from the start, because I think there'll be some gold in there too.
Yeah, and if you're watching us on the replay, hashtag replay for us so that we can see you.
Yeah. And make sure you're subscribed and you've hit that like button,
Yeah,
please.
over 80% of our people that watch our videos aren't even subscribed. Come on, y'all.
Yeah. Yeah. So, Heather, we have a few more questions, and there's two
Okay,
options here. I will tell you the questions, and
okay.
then the options that we have are we put a pin in it and say goodbye for today, and record, or whatever. Have another episode. So, Ascension, the joy, the journey, the joy, the pain, part 3, or we tackle the questions today. So that is the question. Okay.
Mhm.
Questions that we have are left over are, how do we deal with the disclosure of information? So kind of similar question as what we're going through right now, but there's been a lot of things that have been disclosed about medical systems, legal systems, the earth itself. As these things come out, how do you digest them? And maybe what was the craziest thing that you heard that you had to discern if it was true or not? How do you even do that? So that's one question, all wrapped into a couple of questions, I guess. How do you deal with that? Have you ever had trouble accepting yourself or who you see yourself as now? Did you always know your purpose? And how do you come to fully realize your gifts? Those are the questions that we have on tap, which I don't think we can do justice in, 5 minutes. So should we
Well,
have an Ascension part 3?
okay. I went ahead and dropped a poll in the chat while you were asking those questions. So those of you who are on here live right now, hit your answer if you want us to continue now and answer those questions, or if you want us uh to answer those questions next week.
On part
So
3.
yep, on a part 3. So your options are now or next week. If you don't see the poll, you can drop it in the chat just the same. Um, we'll give them a minute to think about that. Tell me the questions one more time.
Oh, okay. So how do you deal? What is some of the disclosure that you've seen come out? How do you discern? How do you deal with some of those things? That's all one big question. How do you deal with finding out things that you thought were truth or lies? How do you deal with that? Have you had trouble accepting yourself or who you see yourself as now? And how do you do that? Have you always known your purpose? How do you fully realize your gifts? Ooh, and one that was on there from last week is if you've had a difficult moment where you wanted to give up, what did you do to break through? So there's a ton of questions.
Yeah,
So,
so I would say that would probably run us about another 30 minutes at least. If y'all want to hang on and go through it, we can go through it. We're just looking for your poll responses.
we got a 50-50. A 50
Oh
50.
man. All right, we're gonna count it down here. So vote right now. We're
Vote
gonna
right
count it
now.
down in
Okay. Well,
10,
and you're going to be our
9,
tiebreaker, Heather. So if there's
8,
still a tie,
7, 6, 5, 4, 3. If you haven't voted, now's your chance. 2, 1. Okay, let's see what our poll says. Oh my gosh, it's still a 50-50 tie.
okay, you're our tiebreaker, Heather. Do you want to keep going or are we saddling up for next week?
Well, I say we just do it. Let's just do it. Yeah? Want to do it? Let's just do it.
All right, let's do it. Okay.
Those of you who can't stay on for another half hour or so, jump off and catch us on the replay. Just know that you're going to be starting, at about the 1 hour mark. Okay. So, I don't know if we can add like a little thing in there during the editing or whatever. I mean, we don't actually edit, so we don't know. If there's a way for us to like put a break there for those of you that would need to jump off, we completely understand. So, okay,
All right. First
let's go.
question.
Yep.
What's the craziest disclosure you've seen in your ascension journey? Something you thought was truth is really a lie, or something like information that you were like, holy pickles, is that real? And how do you discern it?
Oh gosh, the craziest. I mean, there's just so many things to choose from. Yeah. I mean, I oh God, I'm like, I don't want us to get blacklisted from YouTube. There's so many lies. There's so many lies, right? I mean, like government, mainstream media, COVID, the banana shots, I mean, there's just so much, right? And then some things of that are like, holy smokes, is that actually real? It's interesting. I had a dream before before COVID came. I had this dream and I was getting on a train And did I tell you this dream? I think I might have told
No,
you this dream.
I don't
I know
know.
for sure. I know for sure I told Quinn this dream, but and I was totally like disturbed when I woke up. And so I was on this train and Quinn and I were in a car together and it was like just like this little teeny tiny car and each like little family had its own little car. And we were cruising along the tracks and the train stopped. And when the train stopped, there were people coming to the train to like get on the train and they were like trying to get into the train. And I was like, you know, oh my gosh, these people let them on the train, let them on the train. But these people were like sick, right? And if you let them on the train, it's going to infect the train, right? And so there were people like my family members that were outside the train trying to get on. And I opened the door and I grabbed them and pulled them in. And then, like, we died, all of us inside of
Oh,
that one little cube. It was so crazy, right? I was like so disturbed when I woke up. I mean, like, I thought I needed therapy after that. So, anyway, I had that like crazy dream before the Rona came. And I can see now some like nuances to this, and like how the behaviors of people were, if you got the vaccine, didn't get the vaccine, if you, were out and about with your virus versus staying at home. And there was just this real separation and division of people. And there was this train that was moving, and you're either on it or you're not. And it was really like metaphorically looking back at it now, I'm like, wow, that's crazy, the similarities, right? But I think there's just been so much. I don't think I can pinpoint a single disclosure that has been like, holy shit, is that real? Or, you know, wow, that's completely insane. What about you? I mean, what's been
oh
the big
yeah.
one for you?
Oh, many. I'm gonna list. Are you ready?
Yep, ready.
Giants. The mountains are actually giant trees. The alt like history is not what we think it is. The civilizations that were far more advanced, and had technology that we can't even comprehend. That flat Earth, mud floods, aliens, UFO disclosure. That is just off the top of my head.
Yeah.
Yeah, all of those things have come up in the moon landing being fake. All of those things have come up over the last couple of years, and now
Yeah.
so I'm not saying that I 100% believe every single one of those things, but what that disclosure really did for me was allow me to take a step back from what I think I know and be open to whatever presents itself, and not so set in one way. It has to be this way. I feel like I am not locked into one way or another. Is the earth flat? I don't know. I don't know. I can't see it. I don't know. I don't know. But I've seen some really great arguments on either side. And
True.
I'm open to listening more, and I am completely detached from one way or the other. Could be both. Could be neither. I have no idea. There's a lot of things that I've questioned because of it, and a lot more things that make sense because I've began to question the mud floods. Why are some buildings and some statues and monuments super down deep? The building of these crazy, insane, beautiful buildings, this architecture that is insane, and then seeing a horse and wagon in front of it with a street that's made out of mud doesn't make sense to me. Never made sense to me. Never thought about it before. So
Hmm.
it's really opened my eyes. At first, it was really hard to like feel that loss of, wow, I've been lied to. I've been programmed, and and also the anger that comes with that of like, what the
Mhm.
hell? Why would somebody try and do that to me, pull the wool over my eyes? And then it moved. It's kind of like the stages of grief almost. Then it moved into, okay, I can accept that there is some fuckery that is happening out there. And okay, that's whatever. I can discern, I can use this as a tool of how do I discern moving forward. And a lot of these things we may not ever have the absolute answer to, which I've dealt with in channeling different information that you might not have a concrete piece of evidence. And you get to choose to believe or believe and then change your mind or not believe and change your mind, whatever. It's about you discerning what feels true in your heart.
Totally. Yeah. Kat's also talking about some of these same things that you're talking about. And one of the ones I want to add to that is what happened on Maui? Like, why were the blue things spared? How did the trees survive, but other things didn't?
And they
Why
were
did
decimated, like decimated. They're just, there's no
completely?
way. Yeah.
Yeah.
Not
Yeah. And
geoengineering.
right, and the way that the support efforts, if we can call it that, the way all of that was handled was just so poorly handled. It just I feel there's an agenda there, right? And my intuition doesn't misguide me. So, it's just like that's again some of the stuff that I think that we've sort of channeled on and discovered you
Mhm.
know, and even have just had disclosed in the course of living, even
Mm,
outside of the channel. Um,
absolutely. Kat said
yeah,
that metal doesn't disintegrate like that. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. It's
yep.
very peculiar. Um,
Yeah, nine
as
eleven.
yeah, I mean that's another one. 9/11, Titanic. That one was
Yep,
another one for me. Like,
yeah,
what? That was
yeah,
actually something that we channeled
yep.
before we had learned, like before there was great disclosure that came out about it. I mean, there's so much more, but some of the things I've thought, the ancient buildings, the ancient civilization being advanced and then being taken out, however they were taken out, that totally makes sense to me. Because
Mhm.
a horse and buggy moving, 1,000-pound limestone blocks to make
Right.
beautiful buildings that we don't even replicate today with the equipment and machinery that we have access to, that
Hmm.
doesn't make sense to me.
Right,
That just, there's just no, it's not,
right.
no, no.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So
Uh,
what's up next?
okay. Ah, okay. The next thing on the list is did you have any trouble accepting yourself or who you see yourself as now? As you were going through this ascension process and you were learning about yourself.
While I would love to say, oh no, I fully accepted myself. I'm amazing. Let's be real. I mean, yes and no. There are certainly things in my ascension that I wholeheartedly accepted and just, that is me. I am that. And there are certainly things throughout the process that I have been like, there's no freaking way. One of the things that I grappled with was being the channel. So, you know, the beings, when I'm channeling the beings, they always refer to me as the channel, and it is with a capital T, like a capital the channel. My understanding of the like hierarchy on the other side is there's no names, there's simply jobs. right? And
Mm.
you are known by your job. And so when they talk about me, they talk about me as the channel. And when I asked about being the channel, it was, like the channel. So it's not, it's more of like I don't know how to describe what I'm trying to say. Funny that I'm the channel and I'm having a loss for words. It's kind of like the principal of a school, right? The principal of a school runs a school, teaches teachers, things that teachers need to know in order to teach their students. And, the students come and learn from the teachers, right? And so it's like a hierarchy. And so, being the channel has me having a lot of other teachers and students that I have cultivated throughout many lifetimes. And so um, on the other side, I'm known as the channel. And this is something that I've always done. This is like was my soul was birthed into this and has been this in every iteration of lifetimes in every species. And so having this type of like soul experience, I am referred to as the channel. There are other people in my close sphere that also have names that are jobs. And they are that because they have always been that. And they are here to do that. And um, so to me, I think when I learned that I am the channel, that was something that was um, a little unnerving because I didn't really know what that meant for me. And it was a little like at times my ego was like, oh yeah, you go girl, right? um, but there's also a great feeling of responsibility, like of being the channel. I am the voice for the other side, and that comes a great deal of responsibility. So I don't know if that answers the question, but I would
Yeah.
say probably that.
Okay, well, I'm gonna lead into the next question because I think it goes so beautifully. So then, did you know what your purpose was all along, or I mean, how did you find it? How did that come about?
No, I didn't know what my purpose was all along. I mean, we always joke about Heather Funny Haha and her 100 million jobs, right? Like Heather's worked everywhere. So, like as a young person, I worked everywhere. I had all kinds of jobs. I did everything. Like I literally worked for like every company I think on earth practically. So look in the files, you'll see my employee record. So I think that I had a career in beauty, and that was a way for me to give my medicine, my healing, um, and help people and, channel for them without even knowing what I was doing. So I was just like blindly doing that. And it didn't come to be learning about my purpose until I was probably in my 30s somewhere when I started realizing that I am meant to be that liaison between this world and the other side. And so, you know, going through that or having that experience and learning that about myself was really unfathomable. Like I couldn't it wouldn't fit inside of my sphere of thought process. It was too big for that. And the visions that I was seeing about how I would deliver messages, it certainly wasn't on YouTube, that's for sure. But like, like having that that sight and that ability to bring forth that information, it was bigger than me, and I didn't know how to deal with that. And so I just kind of said, oh, okay, that's weird. And for years I just kind of sat on it. I was kind of doing it, tinkering in it, understanding more and more about it. And I would say that it wasn't until like I like really came out of that spiritual closet that I was able to like step into who I actually am and like what I actually came here to do. And I'm still not even in the place of what I'm here to actually do. Like, it's so much larger than even what I'm doing now. I'm supporting some people in their ascension journeys, and I'm helping some people, build their spiritual businesses. And, I'm doing some of these things, but this isn't why I'm here. These are just things that I'm doing using my gifts. I'm here to help ascend humanity, to be that communication vessel so that they know that they're not alone. So I'm still not even doing what I came here to do.
Hmm.
So, you know, I mean, like, what about you? What about you, Jolie? Are
What
you
about
doing what you
me?
came here to do?
Oh gosh. Okay, well, the first question was, did you have any trouble accepting yourself or who you see yourself as now? I'm gonna start with what you were talking about, the titles. And the answer is absolutely freaking yes. I really ran away from it. My title on the other side is the freedom bringer. And I did not always know my purpose. I think they hid it from me for a good reason. Maybe not hid it from me, but maybe it wasn't fully disclosed until later on in life. Because a part of my purpose is dismantling an old system and bringing forward new earth currency, which is no money. It's the energetic exchange. And so that didn't drop in until, I don't know, probably about 5 years ago, that part, maybe even 4 years ago, that whole statement. And that was really difficult to accept. That just little old me, 5'1". I don't even think I'm 5'1.5" anymore. I think I've shrunk. But 5'1", little blonde girl from Lamont, Alberta, Canada. A population 2,000 was going to do that. Like, it seems ludicrous to me even now, that is my purpose. And like you had said, Heather, for yourself, I haven't even really started to scratch the surface of all of it. I'm still moving through it and learning and all of these things. And it's evolving, but I didn't know. Who could have known that? Like, come on. Do you know how horrible I am at basic math? Maybe that's
It's
why I was
true.
sent here to, um, you know, install the new earth currency or bring forward the new earth currencies because I don't like counting. So maybe that's it. I don't know. But for me, my journey to my purpose was one that was winding. There wasn't a straight line to like, you are the freedom bringer. Like, what the heck's that? It was very windy. Like, I mean, like you said, Heather, you had many jobs. I didn't have as many as you, but like I was in, I took environmental sciences. Well, I went to school for nursing, and then I went to school for environmental sciences, and then somehow I went into safety. Like, what does that have to do with anything? And then I went into finances and I started my own brokerage and all of that. Like, it doesn't, when you look at those things separately, they don't make sense. But when I mash them together in my life, I can see how, I needed compassion with with being a nurse and taking care of people and that side of things, and the environment. There were certain skill sets that I needed to learn. Really, it was environmental law that really excited me, and then I realized it was going to take way too long to go to school for that. But it was the codes and the statutes and like how things are supposed to be, and like the investigatory side of things, which fast forward to like all the things I've learned about money. There was a lot of investigation about the systems and the corruption and the things that were going on there that mattered. The safety side of things, it was all about, occupational health and safety and the codes and the acts and the statutes and learning all of that stuff. Now, long story short, when I look back, I can see how every step led me divinely to here where I'm supposed to be. And not once in those previous steps would I have thought like, I'm on a path to the freedom bringer. I wouldn't have known. But I just felt so compelled. And really, when I got into my spiritual journey, I think that's something important to say too. When I got into my spiritual journey, I really wanted to quit, because learning all of that information and the heaviness of the title, if you will, of what I saw I was supposed to bring to this earth, that scared the shit out of me. And I really wanted to quit. And it's not something that I could quit. It was something that kept following me around, like it was hunting me in the best way ever. Like, you have to speak about this, you have to do this. It felt like I was compelled to bring this work to life, and the work has changed and morphed in so many ways, just like me. But every step along the way, I've just loved the beauty of the journey.
100%. Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, I think that's the I think that's the takeaway with that, right? Is like it's just you never know if what you're experiencing right now is actually pointing you in the direction of your purpose. I
And it might be
mean,
crazy that you would think, no, there's no way. There's
mhm,
no way that I'm going to, this is a crazy one. There's no way that I'm going to hire a fitness coach and then they will eventually take me on my spiritual journey.
right.
That's what
Yeah.
happened.
Yep.
One of my very first coaches, I hired her for a fitness course,
Hmm.
and it morphed from there. Even our friendship, you just,
Yep.
I think you just have to really believe that everything is happening for this higher purpose of the best. Like, you wouldn't have chosen poorly, guys.
Totally.
Chose it all before. All right.
Yep.
We're down to our last question. Okay. And it was actually one that Kat asked in the chat, but I thought it was a really good one. How did you fully realize your gifts, or begin to fully realize your gifts? How do you do that?
I surrendered. I surrendered. I mean, when I was first like learning, I guess, to channel, um, even though it was like part of my innate knowing, my monkey mind had to learn. And when I was doing that, I started with free writing, and I would sit there for hours and the pen would not move. And I would start just writing anything and nothing would come out, only my thoughts. It was never divine information. It was just, I think I might be hungry now. I should eat a potato, like it was
French fries
like
will do.
exactly, exactly. Is that rock looking at me right now? I think it might be. Oh, wait, I'm writing a thing. I mean, it was just like it was just ridiculous. But I think for me, when I surrendered into like, this is who I am, and the knowledge and the skills are going to find their way to me, I don't need to go looking for them. That is when I like fully realized my gifts and my abilities. the skill came from the practice. So, and it was, boy, bumpy. It was bumpy in the beginning. I mean, anybody can ask, ask Quinn. Boy, he'll tell you how bumpy it was. It was like, I'm a robot. It was really weird. Um, so, the ability to go into trance and allow them to communicate through me and have this um surrender to the wavelength, and knowing that they're only going to bring the information that those who are here to receive it are meant to get. I think that in that surrender, it was really that was where it unlocked for me. And I see a lot of spiritual leaders, they run into this, right? They try to control it. They want to control it. They want to work it. They want, more tools, more systems, more knowledge, more, divine guidance, more energy, right? They just want more, but they haven't surrendered into the gifts they already have. And so they
Appreciate
get,
them.
yeah, and they get stopped, they get blocked. And, the thing about universal knowledge is the number one thing is gratitude. You got to be fucking grateful for what you've got. And the more gratitude you give it, the more of it will show up for you.
Mm.
I have a ritual that I do every time I'm going to channel. There's some willy-nilly channeling that comes in along the way. Someone calls me up and says, "Hey, I got a question," and I'm like, "Okay, let me just tap the channel," there's a little bit of that. But whenever I, come on here to do these episodes, or I do a live event, or I'm channeling for a client, or, whatever the work actually is, I have a ritual and I have it in place to honor, respect, and give gratitude to the gifts that I have been given. And I think that for me has been the unlock of it all. So many times people struggle with well, they say I can do this thing, but I can't do it. And I want another tool and, I need to do this. And, they're so here with it and they haven't said thank you. Thank you for this wonderful opportunity to live this human life. And thank you for these beautiful gifts that you've bestowed upon me. And thank you for this amazing, wonderful place to deliver what it is that you want to share with the world. And I am so honored to be that vessel for you. That's the part that's missing. That's the secret sauce. Anybody who's watching right now, you want to know how to do it? That's the secret sauce. Start being grateful for the shit that you've been given, and more shit will show up. What about
For
you?
magic.
Yeah.
Ah, I don't think I could say it any better than what you said it. And I just want to echo something that you said. You said surrender. I think we should hashtag this. There's a t-shirt that we're making that's going to have this on it. I swear to you, it's coming. Surrender. The knowledge and skill will find me. Truly,
Yep,
what you're saying is I'm divinely led, and that is true.
that's right.
That is true for all of us. And that was it for me too. When I really let go to, I should be here, I should be there, or that pressure of seemingly supposing to be somewhere else and not having that appreciation of where I sit in this divine moment. When I let all of that go and I found love, appreciation, and joy here in this moment, everything started to come in. And it's like that every day. Not every day is perfect. But there's days that are harder than others. And on the days that things are difficult for me and things aren't flowing as easily, I surrender again. It's an opportunity to surrender more and learn and be curious about what this experience is bringing to my life in this moment.
Totally. Beautiful.
Amazing. Well, I think that's a wrap.
Yep. Thank you for hanging with us. For those of you that hung and those of you that are catching us on the replay, remember hashtag replay. And
Hit that like
we love you
button.
guys. Hit the like button and subscribe. Please subscribe. It's super easy. It's just we're going to put it right here at the end screen. You can click it right when this video ends. It should be showing up right about now. So we'll see you next week, y'all.
Bye.
Bye.